A few familiar faces are set to return to the 806 this weekend as Texas Tech is set to face off against the Houston Cougars in the Red Raiders Big 12 home opener. Can Texas Tech get back on track offensively? It'll be no easy task with new QB1 Baron Morton, but now has to be the time. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxwell here for the Back to 12 podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay in the know on Texas Tech football all year long. And listen, I know 60% of y'all haven't subscribed to the channel. What are we doing? We're giving you daily Texas Tech football videos, and we'll be giving you daily Texas Tech men's basketball videos all year long. We're giving you the latest breaking news, game previews, 3 keys to the game, going behind enemy lines, and much, much more. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like the video and join the most engaging Texas Tech community here on YouTube in the Back to 12 podcast channel. All right, before we get into my prediction and preview of the game, I want to hear from you guys. Who you got? Leave your score prediction for Houston at Texas Tech on the pinned comment below. I know it's been a little bit of a downer for Texas Tech fans so far, but maybe this is the game the Red Raiders get back on track. Let me hear from you guys and leave your score prediction on the pinned comment down below. All right, let's jump into this. Let's set the scene for this one as Texas Tech has their Big 12 home opener against some familiar faces. You've got Donovan Smith at QB1. You've got Alex Hogan in the Cougars secondary. And not to mention Dana Holgorsen and a couple of others as well when it comes down to it. Where will this one be played? Jones AT&T Stadium at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on Saturday afternoon. It'll be on FS2. You can see the broadcasters at the bottom of your screen below. But the history here is interesting, real quick, before we get into injuries and everything. The Cougars actually lead the all-time series 18-15-1, but Texas Tech has actually won 10 of the last 11 meetings against the Cougars, dating back to their time together in the Southwest Conference, which is super interesting. And not to mention Texas Tech has won each of the last 5 contests as non-conference opponents. So there's history here for sure. Now, also, the Red Raiders are entering unfamiliar territory as they are 1-3 right now, and this is only the second time that they've done this in the Big 12. The last time they did it was during the COVID-shortened year of 2020. Texas Tech is 2-5 all-time since 1972 in its 5th game where they start 1-3 on the season. So there's that aspect of things as well. Now, when it comes to the players to watch for Texas Tech, obviously, Baron Morton's got to be one of them now, right? You think about it, Tyler Shuck is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, probably the rest of the season, if we're being honest about it, with a nasty fibula injury, hoping he gets well soon. And, man, I hope the luck on the injury front just changes for him. It's now Baron Morton's team, though, right? And there were some rumors about a shoulder injury and AC joint, and you have to take Joey McGuire at his word at this point. He said that Baron Morton will be good to go against Houston and is the clear-cut the guy for the Red Raiders moving forward. Speaking of the guy that's made the Texas Tech offense look halfway decent this year at times is Taj Brooks. He's a guy you have to know in this one. He's on pace for over 1,200 yards, and he is on pace right now, as it stands, to be a top 8 rusher all-time in Texas Tech program history if he continues this torrid pace that he has to start the season, averaging nearly 7 yards a carry. As for the trenches, it's something you got to watch in this one because the 2 units that I thought potentially had the chance to really push Texas Tech up have simply fallen flat outside of maybe 3 guys, right? The offensive line has no idea how to pass protect whatsoever. They've looked decent in run protection and run blocking and everything like that. But when it comes to pass pro, they've looked abysmal for most of the season, right? When it comes to the pass rush, I don't know where Steve Linton is. Mile Cole at least has some sacks on the year, but you can't rely on Tony Bradford and Jalen Hutchings to do absolutely everything for you when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback. Those 2 units have to be better for Texas Tech, and this is a time that they have to prove it because, listen, I'm not trying to throw shade at Houston, but every matchup from here on out, it's probably going to be a little bit tougher for the Red Raiders. As for the Houston Cougars, names to watch, and no, it's got to start with Donovan Smith. Everybody knows him out in the 806. A lot of people were on the Donovan Smith hype train, and he did some really good things for Texas Tech last year. Remember that 4th and 20, 4th and 19, where he got it to Bradley and extended the game, and Texas Tech went on to beat a Texas team, right? You look at that. He's a beast when he is at his peak level. The problem is he's inconsistent. What Donovan Smith will we see out in the 806? We know one thing for sure. It'll be a highly motivated one. His favorite target is Samuel Brown, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a big-time playmaker on the outside in the Cougars' passing attack, and he's actually one of 3 Cougar wide receivers. The other ones are Golden and Manjack the fourth. That might be the best last name in all of college football. Manjack? Salute to you, sir. Anyway, those 3 all have at least 20 receptions or more on the season. When it comes to the Cougars defense, you got to know these 2 names. Malik Robinson, leading tackler for Houston with 25. He's a sideline-to-sideline guy, not huge. He's 6 foot, 6'1", but he's got rangy speed, and he's not afraid to go down into those A, B, and C gaps and be an enforcer in the run game. As for the defensive line, the name you have to know for the Cougars is Nelson Caesar. He leads the Cougars in sacks with 3.5, and the Teco line will need to know where he is at all times. He moves around a little bit on that defensive line in the inside, but he is a guy that is absolutely nasty and can force an offensive lineman off of their block and really wreak havoc for the opposing quarterback. So Texas Tech is really going to need to know where Caesar is on Saturday. As for the must-watch unit for Texas Tech in this one, it's just the entire offense. And I shouldn't even say must-watch unit, must-watch matchup. It's just the Texas Tech offense. Can they not disappear for 30-minute stretches? I mean, that's really what it comes down to for me, right? Like, again, I'm not trying to crap on Houston. Maybe this comes back to bite me in the butt. I felt the same way about West Virginia as I did Houston in the preseason, so maybe there's something there. But your matchups moving forward are going to get increasingly more difficult for Texas Tech, right? You go to Baylor after this. Houston at home is a game you should thoroughly dominate. You are more talented than the Houston Cougars. Anybody that says otherwise is wrong. Now, there's some issues here from the standpoint of Texas Tech has not lived up to any of that talent, really, at a high level anyway, on a consistent basis so far this year. Specifically the offense. I think the secondary has played great. The linebackers and the patchwork that they've done there, Ben Roberts, you've got Malik Dingle as well, who's going to get more playing time according to Joey McGuire. Those guys have done a phenomenal job, I think, for the circumstances. The defensive line, however, has not. And really, when you look on the offensive side, the offensive line hasn't played great, and neither have the wide receivers, right? And so I know a lot of the blame has gone onto the quarterback, mainly Tyler Shuck before his injury. But if you look at the grand scheme of this, right, the wide receivers don't separate, and the offensive line really can't pass block to save its life most of the time, right? It disappears for 30-minute stretches at a time, right? So for me, in my opinion, I get this is obvious, but the obvious has to be stated sometimes. The Red Raiders offense has disappeared for long stretches, as I've mentioned a couple times now, and that cannot happen against Houston. Because I'm telling you right now, Donovan Smith is going to be motivated. Dana Holgerson's going to be motivated, right? He wanted that Texas Tech job. Don't get it twisted. He wanted that Texas Tech job back when Matt Wells was hired. He wanted it, right? He's got some motivation here, not to mention his ties to Texas. If Texas Tech offensively comes out and they lay an egg for 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes, Texas Tech is going to be in a world of trouble. They're going to be in a world of trouble right here, and we may be looking at 1-4. As for the odds, Texas Tech is actually favored by 10 points. This total over-under is 51.5. Call me naive. Call me whatever the hell you want at this point. I'm going to take Texas Tech to win this one, 33-21. I think Texas Tech comes out. They really use Taj Brooks in this one and really impact the offensive line in terms of, hey, you have to make a statement now, right? Like, I think they're listening, but the problem is, do they do that in pass protection? What do we see from Baron Morton with the full week as the QB1, right? Like, that's what I'm more interested in. But I do think Texas Tech has arguably the best playmaker in this game in Taj Brooks, and I think they use him a lot. And Zach Kittley, even in his Monday press conference, said they're going to ride Taj Brooks now with Baron Morton as QB1. All right, one more time. Leave your score predictions down below for Houston at Texas Tech. You heard mine. I've got the Red Raiders winning 33-21. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows at this point? I know the right thing to do for y'all, though. hit that subscribe button and like the video. If you want to stay in the know on Texas Tech football all year long, right here on the most engaging Texas Tech YouTube channel, of course, I'm talking about the Back to 12 podcast channel.